Welcome to Car Crash Physics. This is a screencast of my project, and I'm going to start with the lesson plan. My name is Melissa Griffith, and I am showcasing an IT-assisted PBL lesson. It's for a physics course for high school, and the unit is for laws of motion. And the lesson plan is a bit lengthy. I have an overview, and then I have specific days listed for what's to be done each day. So I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. The overview has the project content and the goals identified, including the TEKs, prerequisite knowledge, the teams. The students will be working teams of 4, and the project will be conducted over 2 school weeks. And in the detailed lesson plan, I start by giving the link to the blog that serves as the home base for the whole project, and it lists all of the days of the project, including all of the Google Docs that are associated with it. Now, these Google Docs are included in the blog, but I also included them in the lesson plan just to make it more easily accessible. So I'm going to go to the blog and access everything from there. So this is the blog that all the students will use during the project, and the teacher will presumably use as well. I set the blog up so that on the left-hand side has all of the links that the students can access, and they're up the entire time of the project, so they can look at what's coming up, what each task entails, all that kind of stuff. In the middle, I left it pretty much open for questions and interaction back and forth between students and also between students and the teacher. As the project progresses, I would presume that as each task is started on a different day, then I would put task 1 questions specific to task 1 to kind of keep track of everything. But this one's pretty open, pretty empty right now. So it'll be used during the project. So on the left-hand side, we have the project overview, and then each task is broken down with its own links, and then it ends with some teacher resources, the lesson plan that I showed you just a second ago, and also the teacher grading sheet. And I'll actually show the teacher grading sheet now. This I would use to keep track of the points as the project progresses, so that way I can get a feel for where students are, and also the students, if they want to know kind of where they're at, since this is a 2-week project, they don't have to wait till the end of the 2 weeks to know what their grade is. If they want to know, after the first week, hey, how we doing, then I should be able to tell them. So what this does is it breaks down the task and the subtasks, and gives all of the information that they need to know and I need to know, including the points that it's worth. And then I can keep track of, say this is period 1 and it has 6 teams, I can just go along and mark their points. Now this teacher grading sheet is based off of the project planning table, which is actually listed in the beginning. So it kind of comes full circle. So the project planning table is put out there specifically so that students can see what they're going to be doing and how much everything is worth, and that way they know what their expectations are. Each task has at least 1 or 2 subtasks. So the task that is in black color font tells the total points for that task. So for example, the needs assessment is worth 6 points. And each of the 3 surveys that are included in the needs assessment are 2 points each. So if you add up all of the black numbers in the end, then you get to 100 points total. So this is there for the students so that they know how to figure out how much everything is worth. So each task has its own box here, and it's included, it has the links to the Google documents underneath. And each task is identified in the project planning table, and then also has its own checklist at the end of the task so that students know, can keep on top of things and they know where they're at. So for example, project planning table, go back for a second, needs assessment, There are 3 surveys that they need to do for the needs assessment, and they're 2 points each. Okay, so they know that when they look at it, but then when they're actually in the task, before they move on to task 2, I want them to look at this checklist, and the checklist just reiterates the same thing that's on the planning table, that they need to do 3 things, and they're 2 points each. The checklists, which are really check bricks, really just reiterate what's in the project planning table. They start off pretty simple in the beginning, just kind of a check off to make sure that they did it, and then towards the end they get a little bit more lengthy, and I'll show you that in a second. So 3 needs assessments. First one's on car crashes. Just get an idea of their background and their experience, if they've ever been in a car crash or known anyone to get injured. You know, do they text while they drive? You know, do they ride with people that are under the influence? That kind of thing. These surveys are actually forms that are Google Docs, and they answer the questions, and then what they do in the end is they hit submit, and all of the answers go into a big pool, and I can access them, and it tells me what percentage of students answered one way or another. So for example, I can go in after all the students take the survey and see what percentage of my students think that the speed limit on SBID is 60 miles an hour, or how many of my students you know, never talk on the phone or talk on the phone all the time when they're driving. So they're anonymous, so I want them to be honest, and that gives me an idea kind of where they're at, and it also kind of puts a little bit of information into their brain as far as what kind of project we're going to be dealing with. The next needs assessment is laws of motion. I'm going through these pretty slowly because I do not have PDFs of these. Laws of motion are also referred to as Newton's laws, and they're also referred to in the general term as just forces, because they're the forces that occur in nature. So it asks a little background information. What do you know about Newton's laws? You know, some real-world examples, like if an object is sitting on a table, doesn't move on its own, this can be explained by which one. And before the project started, they will have like an introductory lesson, so they'll have a little bit of background about these, but I wanna see exactly if, you know, if they can identify which law of motion correlates with which real-life experience or real-world event. The third one is a PBL, needs assessment. And really, I just want to know what kind of experience they've had with projects before, what they liked about them, what they didn't like, were they able to choose their own topic, was it relevant to them, were they motivated to work on it, and did it, you know, did it solve a real world problems, that's something they can use outside of school kind of thing. Again, it's anonymous, and they just go to the bottom and hit submit, and I get all of the answers kind of collated in graph form. So this shows them that not only is this maybe going to be a different type of project than they're used to, but also lets them know that the relevancy of the project is important to me, which I think will intrinsically make them more motivated, because it shows that the teacher cares. Alright, so we have task 1 needs assessment. For the rest of these, tasks 2 through 8, we have all of these are in PDFs. So I'm just going to go through these very quickly. Research questions. They break into groups and, well, sections, and then they answer a bunch of questions that I have on there. So what I did is, since I am asking very specific questions, I went ahead and gave them 3 websites. Which I don't normally give them websites to begin with, but we're kind of in a time crunch and I want them to get to the data really quickly. So they can use any of these websites or one on their own if it's a reputable site. And they ask questions, they answer questions about how many, you know, car crashes occur, you know, last year, and, you know, what time of day has the most, you know, fatalities in car crashes, stuff like that. Kind of gets them thinking. So I talk about alcohol and drugs related car crashes, talking on the cell phones, pedestrians, you know, safety belts, going the speed limit, that kind of stuff. So they're very specific questions. The idea is not to necessarily get the right answer, but to get some answers, look these up, thinking about them. They meet with other students who are in their section, they discuss their answers, and then they swap the second part of the jigsaw. And what they do is they become experts and they swap. So then, there's one person from each section in each group, and then they teach the others. So they should have a lot of information in a short time, and it gives them time to talk about it and kind of think about these things, because these kinds of questions are going to be exactly what they're going to be working with. So task 3, they form teams, they decide their topic. I have different components of the topic they have to get, they have to identify before they can move on. Then they design their project, and they have to design the 3 crucial parts. They have to design or decide what kind of statistics. Like if they want to focus on, texting while driving, then they need to know exactly what statistics they're going to look up. If they're working with a group from another country, they need to be able to know how to ask them those questions. They need to design their experiment, which they should have plenty of experience doing. Well, not experience designing, but experience doing experiments. And then they also need to have an idea what kind of public service announcement they're going to have at the end. What kind of web tools they're going to use, what kind of technology they're going to use. Are they going to do a PowerPoint slide where it automatically goes? Are they going to do a movie maker kind of thing with photos? It's up to them what they want to do, but they have to figure it out in the beginning. There's a day to research statistics, and they have to record their data. There's another day to set up their experiment and run the experiment, collect data, and they have another day to form their conclusions, and they're going to have to make some graphs and all that good stuff. Task 7 is a 2-day task. That's where they actually get together and create their public service announcement. And like I said earlier, the checklist for these get quite lengthy towards the end. So this is a checklist for 2 phases of the public service announcement task. And really it's just part 1 is draft and part 2 is the final, and they're pretty much all the same criteria that they need to meet for each one. It just gets them going in the right direction, and it also makes sure that they're actually doing something on day 1 and not waiting till day 2. So all of the goals that were identified in the lesson plan in the beginning are restated here. So that way they know what I'm looking for and what they need to include in their public service announcement. The last task is the actual presentation. So each group, each team is going to present to the class, and then each student gets to basically grade their presentation with a simple yes or no, and there are 20 questions, and they get to calculate their grade. And so based on these sheets for the teams, that will determine the winner. And then the winning presentation for each class will present the following day to a middle school class or a 9th grade class, something like that. And of course at the end I have the lesson plan and the teacher grading sheet. The one thing that is not included in the blog is the post project test, which could also be used as a pre-test and a post-test to see to measure what learning has been done. But it would focus mainly on the laws of motion and meet the TEKS for the physics course, and that would be at the end. So they would have a test grade and they would also have a project grade. The idea would be if they did really well on their project and they paid attention to other students' projects, and they should have learned enough to do well on the post-test. And that would be my final assessment. And that is pretty much it.